Folks, welcome back to Nostalgianomics. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics to discuss, partly because it gets everyone so upset and angry and leaves those dirty comments in my comment sections that I love to read, but also because it makes people uncomfortable to talk about the fact that a children's card game can be compared to the traditional investments in an S&P index fund, which is in a 401k or other retirement accounts. And people like to use a lot of sophisticated terms. It gets people all doubtful of Pokemon investing, like compounding interest and company match on my contributions and dividends being reinvested. But we're going to talk about all that as well. We're going to put in all the numbers and all the data, and I'm going to show you firsthand exactly how Pokemon investing in sealed booster boxes compares to traditional investing. Now, this is not financial advice. Everyone's financial situation is different. You need to make your own decisions, and also everyone's risk tolerance is different. However, I do think having all of the correct data in front of you helps you make a more educated decision. And so how are we going to do this? Well, when I used to take X, Y, and Sun and Moon eras, people got mad at me because those gains crush any traditional investment in terms of mutual funds or index funds. But people say, Alex, those gains aren't realistic. That was before the pandemic. The print runs were lower, all this good stuff. So we're just going to take Sword and Shield era. Fair enough? So Sword and Shield era. This was started back in February 7th of 2020 with base set. And right now, currently, we are in September of 2024, which is 55 months in. And so we're going to take into account, you would have bought one of every box. You can up it to one of every case, whatever much you want, but an equal amount of every box, right, from the time of a release, and you held it until now. So we're not going to say that you could have bought it at distributor pricing or you found deals or whatever it may be. We're going to say you paid full market price of $100 per booster box, which you could have found every Sword and Shield era on the market for that price at release. So $100 for every booster box gives you $1,200 because there's 12 mainline sets. If we divide that by 55 months, it will give you $21.82 per month. Okay. Why did I break it down per month? Well, because if we're going to use a compounding interest calculator, we need to take into account if you were to invest in an S&P index fund the same amount of time you were investing in Pokemon, you would have invested monthly and had it compound over the months. So I have that input in a compounding interest calculator here, $21.82. Monthly contribution, another $21.82. They didn't have months, so I couldn't do 55 months, so I rounded up to 5 years. Now, remember, we're giving the S&P Index Fund a leg up here. We're giving them 5 extra months to grow than we've had in our Pokemon investments, so keep that in mind. And then I use an interest rate of 10.52%. You're going to say, Alex, where'd you get that? Real simple. Right here. The average yearly return of the S&P 500 over 30 years has been 10.52%. And yes, this assumes dividends are being reinvested. So we've got all the dividends all wrapped up in there as well. Fair? So dividends reinvested, right? 5-year time frame, 21.82, same amount we're investing in Pokemon. Okay. If we go ahead and calculate that, we get the result of $1,590.47 over the 5 years. You would have contributed $1,281, so a little more than we contributed into Pokemon, about $81 more, no big deal. And you'd have $1,590 total in your account. So I don't know, roughly 15%-ish return. Not terrible. All right, now we're going to go ahead and look at your 401k, because a lot of people say, Alex, I get a 401k match with my employer, so it's better. Okay, so the average 401k match is between 4 to 6%. So 5% will be in the middle. And they usually match about 50% of that match. So you're getting them 50% of your income up to 4 to 6% of it. Perfect. So we'll get another compounding interest calculator out, and we will put 50% higher dollar amount in there, free from your employer, which brings it up to $32.73 a month in total investment. Monthly contribution, the same 5 years, same S&P index rate. If we compound that over the same 5 years, you'll be left at $24.22. And so that gives you a whole lot more gain. That's good to see. Okay. So we're going to get to Pokemon in a second, but stick with me. All right. Now you have to remember, right? 401k, when you do withdraw those funds at the end of your life, you will pay ordinary taxable income rates. So you will get taxed on this. So a lot of people use taxes to kind of talk down Pokemon investing. You get taxed in your 401k too. So we're going to go ahead and scrub taxes clean, depending on what your income level is, depending on what kind of write-offs you have, whether it be in your regular life, if you have a business set up with Pokemon and LLC, whatever. Taxes are null and void. You're always going to pay taxes in some which way or form, but you're going to pay taxes either way. So taxes are taken off the table. Okay. Let's go to Pokemon. $100 purchase price in all these boxes. Okay. These are last sold at the time I'm making this video, 9/12. Total profits, all right, is what you're going to be looking at if you take the last sold minus what you paid. And then we've got the dreaded selling fees and the shipping charges to get our net profit and net gain. So here we go. What do we got? Well, we've got 1,200. Total sold of 28.27. Total profit of 17.41. If we subtract the selling fees and the shipping, you get a net profit of 1263.55 or 105%. Now, if we were to take the total sold, subtracting the selling fees and shipping, we would have 23.50 left in our total investment account. Now, if you remember, going back to the calculators, that crushes investing in an S&P index fund, even with compounding interest. If you have a company match, it does outperform a little bit, but remember, this is 5 months more than what we gave the Pokemon investments, meaning if the Sword and Shield era can produce at least 72-ish more dollars in gains in the next 5 months, you will actually outperform your 401k with company match with dividends being reinvested into your S&P index funds. Let that sink in. Just let that sink in a second, all right? Not to mention, these are limited. What do I mean by that? Well, you're limited at 4 to 6% of your income. Meaning if you want to invest 10% of your income into your 401k, only 4 to 6% of that is getting that company match. Meaning this total number is not going to look as good because 4 to 6% of your income is not getting the company match. Whereas Pokemon, there's no limits. You can buy one box of one case, 10 cases, 100 cases, and there's no limits, meaning it will actually scale better than what these company matches will. All right. Now stick with me. I made this video not too long ago where I said the worst sets in Pokemon are actually good investments. And my whole point of the video was to show if you would have been the worst picker and you would have picked the worst sets, right? The Steam Siege, Crimson Invasion, Darkness Ablazes, all that from the eras, and done the worst, you were still up a considerable amount of money. Now, if we look at the S&P, these are all the stocks in the S&P that are currently red for the year, okay? It's over 150 of them that are red out of the 500 companies in the S&P. Now, you'll see some of the worst ones have a 66, 60, 53, 50% loss for the year. I can't think of a time where a modern booster box has had a 66% loss ever. Ever. Not after Roaring Skies or Primal Clash got reprints if you would have bought in at release. Not after Chilling Reign, Fusion Strike, Battle Styles got reprints if you would have bought in at release price of $100. And so technically, these stocks in here are more risky than the worst sets in Pokemon. All right, stick with me again. Here is the S&P historical results per year. You see something here? Almost 20% loss a year, right? 38% loss that year. 23% loss this year. The S&P index has lost more than what I would call a Pokemon index of all modern boxes in any particular era in a year. We've never seen all modern boxes go down this much if you bought in at release of $100, meaning it's actually more risky in these terms of numbers, not my opinion, not financial advice, but the numbers show us it's actually more risky in the S&P than it is for sealed booster boxes. Now, some people will come at me and say, well, Alex, I do a Roth IRA. Okay, great. So a Roth IRA, you're putting in already taxed income, and it has a limit. Only $6,500 to $7,500, depending on your age, is what you can actually invest. After that, what are you going to do? Put it back into an index fund outside of a Roth? We've already seen Pokemon's better. So you have a very limited amount you can put in a Roth IRA and take advantage of that. Roth 401ks, they have a little higher limits if you could have a company that does offer a Roth 401k. But again, there is limits. So the issue with all these other traditional investment ideas is there's so many limits to how much you can put in, how much the company will match. And it's very hard to scale if you're making a large amount of money and want to invest a large amount of money. And so Pokemon sealed investing has performed as good or better than all of these different index funds with dividends being reinvested, even with company matches. And at the end of the day, guys, the only downside people can really find with Pokemon sealed investing is that, one, it's always worked since the beginning of time. Pokemon boxes have always risen over time. And two, Pokemon investing is relatively safer if you take into account buying in at release and holding because it's never had as big of drops as the S&P index or the stocks in there have had. So the only main thing you can say is, well, Alex, when it comes time to sell, that's a lot of work. It's not as liquid as clicking a button. And I agree with you. However, There are some things that have made it a lot easier. There's consignment services now that will actually sell your sealed product for you at lower rates if they're worth over a certain amount, meaning you're even going to pay less fees than that 13.5%. And it's only one shipping. You ship everything all at once or drop it off all at once to the consignment service. They do all the work of selling it for you. They send you a check at the end. Your hands are wiped clean. You can realize all your gains. Not quite as fast as the stock, but very simple and relatively fast. And you make a whole lot more money doing so, as shown by the numbers up until now. Now, the only other thing people can say is, well, Alex, the future. Everyone can always talk about the future, things changing, things becoming worse. But all we've really seen is things becoming better and better. I mean, Sword and Shield has really in a lot of instances risen faster than some of the Sun and Moon counterparts in the same amount of time. And now we're seeing Scarlet and Violet actually rise faster than some of its Sword and Shield counterparts in the similar amount of time. Also, not to mention, with every Pokemon booster box going up over time, every box between the 3 to 5 to 7 year mark has started to rise exponentially. So when I look at the Sword and Shield era, we're only looking at 2 to 4 year old sets. We haven't even seen them go through some of their most exponential time periods of growth, meaning if we come back and revisit this in another 1, 2, 3 years, it might even look worse for the S&P index and worse for traditional investments than Pokemon and Sealed investing once Sword and Shield era goes through its next level of growth cycle. And so, guys, these are the actual numbers. Try to refrain from getting, kind of caught off guard with these, sophisticated buzzwords like, well, compounding interest will beat Pokemon, Alex. Well, dividends are going to get reinvested into my investments, Alex. My company, they compound my growth because what's the word? I'm looking for the word. I forgot the word. They match my contributions for my 401k. And everyone wants to always talk about all these things, but no one's taking the time to put the numbers in the freaking calculator in the Excel spreadsheets and realize, wait, even after all of these fancy schmancy financial calculations, Pokemon Sealed investing, buying booster boxes at or under market price and sticking them in your closet is actually better. Oh yeah, last thing. This is the $100 booster boxes. How many of you out there have found booster boxes under $100? How many of you out there can constantly buy boxes for $89.99, $95 at distribution at release? Meaning you take all of those numbers and subtract that from the 100 I had put in the calculations. Or did you buy any Fusion Strike, Chilling Reign, Battle Styles at $90, $80 a box? It's even going to make your gains look more drastic. And that coupled with the fact that there's no limit on how much you can do, where all these other investments have, limits and percentage limits and total investment limits, it just makes Pokemon investing look better and better as time goes on. But again, just my opinion, not financial advice. The numbers are out there. There's the data. Do with it what you please. And to all of the naysayers and haters, hey, go ahead. It's your time now. Leave those dirty comments in the comment section. I can't wait to read them. For everyone else, I'll see you back here in a new video soon. Subscribe to the channel if you're not yet. I'm out.